In May 2026, the United States and China agreed to a 3-year diplomatic framework. They called it Constructive Strategic Stability. The United States walked away from the negotiating table with immediate, tangible receipts, a massive commitment from Beijing to purchase $17 billion in agricultural products, along with an order for 200 Boeing commercial aircraft. For the U.S. administration, these transactional wins solved a pressing domestic equation. Securing economic calm offered voters a distinct positive headline, drawing attention away from a prolonged war in Iran right before the midterm elections. China secured its own objectives. Beijing gained immediate relief from tariff pressure and locked in a predictable bilateral structure for the next 3 years, all without making a single formal political concession. But the official White House summary of the summit omitted something entirely. There was absolutely zero mention of Taiwan. This diplomatic silence carried immediate consequences on the ground. A $14 billion U.S. arms package meant for Taipei was left completely suspended. The most volatile flashpoint in the U.S.-China relationship simply vanished from the agenda. The two superpowers found terms they could live with, raising a critical question about what this mutual silence means for Taiwan's long-term survival. To understand how this happened, we have to look at the geopolitical ledger from the summit. Both nations agreed to stability, but they measured it using entirely incompatible metrics. On the American side, stability meant securing short-term economic deliverables, expanding market access, and protecting global supply chains. On the Chinese side, stability required political caution. It meant managing competition while enforcing strict respect for its core internal affairs. Inside the summit, Xi Jinping explicitly named Taiwan as the most important issue between the two nations, warning the U.S. delegation that mishandling it would lead to direct conflict. The superpowers completely disagreed on the definition of stability, yet they executed a successful mutual transaction by simply acknowledging that raising the issue of Taiwan was too inconvenient for either side to achieve their immediate goals. This diplomatic silence was heavily prepared. Weeks before the American delegation arrived in Beijing, China proactively engineered the political terrain. In April, Chinese officials met with Cheng Li-wen, chairwoman of Taiwan's opposition KMT party. This sequenced meeting successfully framed cross-strait tensions as a domestic political dispute, rather than a geopolitical crisis requiring outside intervention. Simultaneously, Beijing deployed gray zone pressure. Then Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te attempted to transit through Africa. Several nations suddenly revoked his overflight clearances. The mechanism for this airspace blockade was straightforward. China linked future financial arrangements and debt relief discussions to sovereign airspace compliance in countries like Seychelles and Mauritius. The effect spread globally. European democracies like Germany and the Czech Republic also quietly declined alternative transit requests, calculating the political costs of involving themselves in Beijing's core interests were too high. China proved it could choke Taiwan's international mobility entirely below the threshold of military conflict. This calculated pressure allowed the United States to secure its economic wins at the summit without appearing to abandon an ally under direct military fire. For the past decade, Taiwan's primary survival strategy has been to align itself heavily with the United States to secure its geographic position. Taipei backed this strategy with deep financial commitments, purchasing roughly $19 billion in U.S. arms under recent administrations. They also built a massive economic pillar. The Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company pledged $165 billion to expand operations into places like Arizona, deliberately attempting to deepen American reliance on Taiwanese industry. This map shows the strategic paradox. By dispersing critical chip production off the island to secure American favor, Taiwan diluted its own geographic indispensability. As production spreads outward, Taiwan becomes easier to support economically, but less geographically necessary to defend with military force. This vulnerability intersects directly with the managed competition framework established at the 2026 summit. The 3-year U.S.-China truce runs through 2028, overlapping exactly with China's scheduled milestones for major military capabilities. The 2026 summit demonstrates that great powers will almost always prioritize mutual stability over durable commitments to smaller partners. As Taiwan enters its most militarily exposed window, it finds itself quietly marginalized by the very superpower it relied on for protection.